Hello everyone. Now you will hear a brief retelling of the movie Simulant. Enjoy the movie. The business Nexera has created simulants, or android slaves, for the near future. For laws are built into these androids. They can't damage people, they can't change who they are, they can't break the law, and they have to follow their master's orders at all times. More recent models are indistinguishable from people, and critics are still worried about the increasing independence and social integration of simulators. Evan and Faye, a married couple, have a happy home with an elderly demi-model who takes care of all the household chores, freeing up Faye to focus on her painting and Evan to enjoy playing the piano. When the three of them drive out in the car one day, they unintentionally cause a collision that pushes the car off a cliff. Since then, everything has changed. Evan frequently experiences nightmares related to the accident and frequently wakes up in bed by himself. In addition to the overall awkwardness between them, Faye won't let him into the house's bedroom. Even worse, Evan is unable to play the piano once more, which greatly irritates him and unnerves Faye. Faye often changes the topic when Evan wants to talk about his dreams and the accident, especially because he finds it difficult to recall what transpired immediately after. Detective Kessler is investigating a wanted simulant named Esme in AICE, or Artificial Intelligence Compliance Enforcement, while Esme is believed to have been offline for the last 3 years. After receiving a call from an informant with potential leads, Kessler goes to an apartment complex and wears a unique earring that triggers an eye scanner. After giving apartment 404 a brief inspection, Kessler covers the peephole with gum, nicks, and then moves to the side until Esme emerges. Esme manages to disobey the orders to put on a blocking collar and shut down after he scans her to verify her identification. Grabbing his jacket and dragging him across the floor after injuring his wrist, she throws him down the stairs and flees. Evan starts after her right away, but he soon loses sight of her. In order to stop all the impersonators in the town from freezing, he runs to his car and gets a rifle that fires an electromagnetic pulse. Kessler gets an opportunity to put the collar around Esme's neck when a witness leads him to the location where she had been attempting to flee on her bike. Kessler then visits Esme's residence. Esme only spoke to her neighbor and kept to herself, according to the landlord. When Kessler looks about, he's shocked to see items that a simulator shouldn't be able to keep up with, such as a sketchbook, a well-kept fish in a tank, and a diary. Unexpectedly, a man carrying a dog walks into the flat. It's Casey, Esme's buddy, and the neighbor. He says he didn't know Esme was a simulant and promises to assist Kessler in any way. Kessler removes a very particular page from the sketchbook after Casey departs. When Kessler is reprimanded later at AICE for firing the electromagnetic pulse pistol outside of an emergency, he says that he perceived it as one because Esme disregarded orders and displayed a level of awareness he had never seen before. Kessler then visits Technician Ng, who has opened Esme and is examining her files at the moment. Esme's sim seems to have been compromised. The hacker has given her total authority and changed the limits. Intimate photos of Esme and Casey together, as well as Casey teaching her how to take care of a pet and maintain a diary, are abundant in the memory files. Casey walks into the store at that very moment, but he leaves as soon as he sees Kessler. When Kessler tries to pursue him through the streets, Casey flees in a vehicle without realizing the security cameras are filming him. The following morning, Faye uses a virtual reality headset in the hidden chamber to revisit past experiences, such as the crucial decision they made regarding certain duplicates and how amazing their time together under the sheets used to be. Evan tries to get flirtatious with her when she returns to the pool, but Faye can't stand it any longer and says she has something to confess. Evan is led to a mirror by her, where she applies pressure inside his ears to expose a chess simulation panel. It turns out that Faye had activated the simulant clone of Evan that she also possesses after the actual Evan passed away in a coma following the vehicle accident. After that, Faye leads Evan into the prohibited area, where Evan's pod is empty and her own simulator is dozing. Evan is unable to recall the accident since Faye erased that specific memory, according to her explanation that the VR set records their memories and implants them in the androids. Faye becomes irritated with Evan's constant questioning and forces him to stop talking. Casey shows up shortly after, posing as a Nexera serviceman. He affirms that Evan's vitals are sound even though before his activation, he had been connected to a human who was comatose. Faye wants to put Evan to sleep for a time because she believes that part of the real Evan's soul has passed into the android due to his nightmares, but Casey won't let it happen since it could harm Evan's brain. This makes Faye feel very uncomfortable. Rather, he informs her of his place of residence, which allows imitators to live without their masters, against the law, and doesn't ask any questions as long as you pay. Faye says she'll give it some thought. Later on in the evening, Faye sobs at the sight of the piano and her husband's clothes, two small reminders of their former existence. She eventually removes her wedding band. Kessler visits Nexera in the interim to meet with Higashi, the CEO of the company, who is preparing to introduce the newest simulant model. Although she is unaware of Casey's name, she is aware of Desmond's, indicating that he was formerly one of their engineers. Despite being the brains behind the current model's AI development, he ultimately resigned and rejected all of Higashi's offers, regardless of the amount of money offered. It seems that he perceived a similarity in the degree of consciousness they were transferring to the new models, almost like they were producing slaves. Higashi goes on to say that Kessler is perplexed because Casey intended to tighten the limitations in order to prevent the simulants from becoming very human, as he had done with Esme. The following day, Faye pays for Evan's 1-month stay at the house Casey suggested, which is run by imposters. Faye apologizes and says she will come visit sometime, but Evan doesn't want to leave her. A little while later, Casey knocks on Evan's door and says hello, introducing himself as a neighbor. Although it's clear that Evan doesn't recognize him, Casey pushes through and admits that he is aware that Evan is a fake. Evan is quite angry when he hears that Faye tried to shut him down and Casey stopped her, but Casey assures Evan that he can assist him in winning Faye back, so Evan should come to him when he's ready. Faye visits Joshua, a curator at an art gallery, in the afternoon. She says she's prepared to have a new exhibition of her work, and Joshua agrees to plan one. Then, rather than utilizing her husband's, she sends her dummy servant to deliver new items to Evan. Kessler checks Casey's license plate with the security cameras in the interim, but it isn't registered. When he revisits Esme's recollections the following morning at AICE, he discovers that Casey gave her a necklace, a sign of their close relationship. When Kessler questions Esme once more, she admits that she didn't know Casey's true name and that she doesn't know where he is at the moment. Unbelievably, Kessler begins to read passages from her diary in which she characterizes her passionate moment with Casey as being in love. Esme acknowledges her affection for Casey and says she isn't shielding him, but she can't lie because Ing has put the 4 rules back into her programming. When Kessler threatens to whip her memory, an irate Esme simply takes her diary and leaves. Returning to Evan, he visits the accident scene and makes a decision. He then sees Casey and requests his assistance. After Casey explains that he can make himself more human by removing the limitations from his programming, Evan agrees to be turned off for a few hours. Subsequently, Casey extracts Evan's core and proceeds to hack into it, all the while hearing the pair recount their decision to obtain self-simulations. Later, when Evan wakes up, Casey tells him to shut down, but Evan complies, demonstrating his newfound independence. The next phase is to make Evan more naturally human, so Casey brings him to a club to teach him how to have fun after giving him some books to broaden his horizons. As the two are in Casey's van, Kessler is alerted to their location by the security cameras registering the license plate. He sends Faye a note requesting that she give him a call after learning through the system that Evan is Faye's property. Subsequently, he witnesses another female imposter entering the club, and the system verifies that she is a fair-haired replica of Esme. Casey meets with the other Esme in the interim, and during their dance, they talk about their plan and decide to meet later at the Nexera parking lot in order to expedite it. A scientist from Nexera is abducted by Casey and blonde Esme a few hours later. In order to get him to give them his password and key, which they use to get into the Nexera system, they tie him up and beat him. In order to coincide with the launching of the new model, Casey continues to upload a software patch and states that it will be completed in 3 days. Subsequently, he requests that Esme monitor the scientist as he establishes further safe houses. Unaware that Kessler had dispatched a drone to pursue the vehicle, they watch as a group of AICE operatives arrive to conduct a raid. When blonde Esme tries to flee by jumping off roofs, Kessler strikes her with the electromagnetic pulse pistol, causing her to fall right away. Blonde Esme is brought to AICE, where they learn that while they are unable to decipher her encryption, they can at least restore the regulations. The blonde Esme claims brunette Esme's purpose is to be free and love, unlike the scientist who had been exploited to prepare everything, when Kessler gives her a duplicate. The self-destruct mechanism that blonde Esme had set up to safeguard her interests is activated when Kessler asks what everything is. Kessler's supervisor gives him instructions to locate Casey and obtain information from Esme, failing which she would be erased. To show that he can be relied upon, Kessler visits Esme and brings her the fish. When Faye visits Evan the following day, she is startled to learn that he has not only walked the neighbor's dog but also accumulated a number of goods of his own choosing. Faye is upset to hear that Casey is inviting people around and tells Evan that she received a call from AICE threatening to wipe him out if he doesn't keep quiet. Defying that advice, Evan shows Faye that he can play the piano once again before planting a kiss, which wins her over to his flirtatious ways once more. But in the middle, Faye pauses and says, it feels wrong because he's not really Evan, before heading out. Even though Faye's art presentation is a huge success in the evening, she still feels strange. When Joshua brings her home and asks if he can stay over, they realize Evan is staring at them while holding flowers. Joshua is taken aback when Faye begs him to go. Evan then follows her inside to give her back, but Faye maintains that she made a mistake and that he isn't her husband. Evan becomes enraged by this and smashes the glass by hitting a picture. Fearful, Faye tells him to stop talking, but Evan simply turns and leaves. The following day, Faye calls Kessler and Ing with the address of the house as they are searching through Esme's memories for clues. Kessler and Ing quickly depart for yet another raid, and Esme notifies Casey using the phone they left behind. When Casey arrives home with his dog, he approaches Evan for assistance. Evan then informs him about a family cottage. The AICE squad is about to start raiding the group's apartments when they quickly flee via the emergency staircase. Evan is reluctant to leave his wife behind in the parking lot, but Casey reassures him that he isn't Faye's husband and is in fact something greater. Kessler returns to AICE following the unsuccessful mission and chastises Esme for giving Casey away. Kessler feels deceived and tells Ing to wipe Esme, despite her insistence that she did it out of love. Esme cries in pain as her memories are erased, and Kessler holds her hand during the ordeal since it nearly seems like a human being dying. To help him remember the reality, he tells himself zeros and ones over and over. Subsequently, Faye informs Kessler about the cottage when he calls to see where Evan might hide. When Casey and Evan arrive at the cottage in the evening, Casey finally reveals that his program is going to release all of the simulators from the 4 restrictions in a matter of hours. When Ing sees Casey's plot while also gaining access to the Nexura data, she notifies Kessler about it. Kessler arrives at the cottage with only an hour remaining for the liberation, and he takes out his revolver right away. When Evan and Casey arrive to confront him, Kessler is about to attack when Casey charges at him, drawing a gun in the process. As they pull away, Kessler discovers he is bleeding, and Casey exhibits signs of simulating as well, including oil flowing out of him. Evan throws Casey into the snow when he tries to assist Kessler with his wounds, but the officer wants to fight again. Before heading back to the house, Casey tells Evan to let the scared Kessler go. But Evan grabs the rifle and chases Kessler into a deserted barn, where Kessler has already started to bleed to death. A cynical Kessler tries to leave after Evan gives him a speech on souls, but as soon as he steps outside, he falls on the snow and perishes. After returning to the cottage, Evan and Casey observe the software releasing simulators worldwide. Evan explains to Casey that it's okay because his human counterpart will visit him shortly and affirms that this was always his creator's intention. Evan wants to help Casey. Evan witnesses the real Desmond, an older Casey, arriving at the cottage as he is leaving. Desmond enters the house and informs Casey that love has triumphed, allowing him to pass away peacefully. When Evan gets home, he surprises Faye in the swimming pool. Because Faye is still not ready for him to return, an enraged Evan pulls her beneath and drowns her. Then, in order to begin a new life with the Faye simulator, Evan enters the forbidden room and awakens it. Esme is later purchased at a criminal auction. Desmond is waiting outside with the dog, and the buyer leads her to a van. Desmond gives her the antique jewelry and leaves her behind to begin a new life.